What's up, folks? Sean the Average Angler coming at you with another great video, and today I'm still getting ready for that Yamamoto tournament, but today we're going to talk about my 3 favorite jigs. And look, I've got tons and tons of jigs, but this is really meant to keep it simple. We're going to go over color choices. We are going to go over rod and reel setups and line. And I think you're going to find out that overall it's simplified, yet it's specific. Let's get started. And if you're new to the channel, you like this kind of content, hit that subscribe button down below. Join the Average Angler community. And at 5,000 subscribers, we're going to have a big bait giveaway. Haven't quite decided exactly what the package is going to be yet, but trust me, it's going to be a good one. Last time we gave away a Flag 170 glide bait. Actually, we gave away 2 of them. All right, so let's get started on our jig fishing here, and let's start a finesse jig. Okay, and there's a lot of finesse jigs out there. Here is one of my favorites, and I've got a couple finesse jigs for you, and I'm going to talk to you about why. This is on my rod, as you can see, it's what I've been fishing on my local pond, and you will see I've been beating this thing up. Okay, and it's not because of the quality of the jig, it's because I'm fishing it through a lot of rock and that kind of stuff. And if you're doing it right, this is what's going to happen. I need to retie this. It's a little shabby. It's been banging around a lot down there. But this is a Bass Union finesse jig. And this is round rubber, also known as living rubber. The advantage to a living rubber is it has a lot of movement in the water when you're not moving the bait. So that skirt kind of moves around, pulsates in the water when it's sitting still. So there's always some kind of little action going on with the bait without you having to do a whole lot. Okay, you can shake it, but you don't need to do a whole lot with this skirt. When you move it, it collapses, and when it stops, it starts to open up and it's going to pulsate, especially with any kind of natural currents in your water. If you have some natural current, whether it could be wind, it could be boat wakes, it could be they're pulling water type of current. So that is number 1, and it's not our only finesse jig. We're still going to stick with 3 jigs essentially, but it's not my only brand of finesse jig. So this still counts as 1 because this is still a finesse jig. This is your typical silicone skirt type finesse jig. This happens to be a Johnny C's California Reservoir lures, and I love Johnny C's, and this is really something I use a lot paired with that Bass Union. I just need to figure out, do they want something a little more subtle? This is going to be a wee bit more subtle. The skirt's not going to move around quite as much as the Bass Union. The other thing you're going to have with the silicone skirt is tons and tons of choices of colors. I told you I was going to talk about colors because generally I'm going to keep it pretty simple. Okay, I like something a little bluegilly. There you'll see that's kind of bluegillish, right? Green pumpkin can be considered bluegillish, but brown and purple. Another color I am going to use is going to be black and blue. Okay, that's generally about it for the most part. Now, my number 1 trailer right now, and I think you guys know this if you've been watching my channel at all, is that Phat Pack's Beasty bug. You can see why. It's got a great profile. It's got kickers on the claws. It has a really good plastisol content, so that bait will kind of float up some, get it off the bottom, and then colors galore. Okay, and they're really good colors. Here you see when I made this to contrast quite a bit. This is June Bug Flash. That's really where I'm going to go if I want to change colors. I'm going to start with those 3 basic ones I told you about, and then I'm going to use trailers to get a different look if that's what I feel I need. Finesse jig is number 1, okay? That's what I'm going to use for my open water, offshore type stuff, mostly fishing hard bottom and rock when a finesse presentation is what's needed. How do I know a finesse presentation is what's needed? Well, it's just one of those things where you're gonna have to find out by experimenting, right? And some lakes just prefer a finesse type jig. Other times you want a big bulky jig. Okay, we forgot to go over the rod on that finesse jig. Okay, So we've got the Irod Air. This is a 753. Irod Air at 7'5", 10 to 18 pound test, quarter to 3/4 ounce lure weight. Okay, that is a 753 Irod Air. Okay, it's a little bit softer than some of these other ones. Great sensitivity, very light. It is a worm and jig rod. I love it for the finesse jigs. That's pretty much almost the only thing you're ever going to see on that rod for me. Okay, so that was a finesse football. The next jig we're going to talk about that I use a ton of is your full-size jig, still a football head. Okay, this, you look at that compared to the finesse, and these can get a lot smaller, okay? And the one thing I didn't mention, the Kitech finesse jig, great jig. I do like it. The downside is I've broke quite a few hooks out of that jig. That is a little disappointing. I can't say the same about the Johnny C or the Bass Union. I've never broke a hook out of those. Okay, this jig here, and you can, there's a ton of brands out there, folks. I mean, a ton of them. But this is a Santone M-Series football jig. It is a collar, not hand-tied. One of the things I like about this jig, it comes with rattles attached. If you, I don't know if you're going to be able to see it. Yeah, right there. Okay, there's rattles attached to it, so if you want the rattles, you leave them on. If you don't, you just simply pull them off. It's a decent price jig, very well built. It's got a great hook, good good weed guard. Generally, I will cut some of the weed guard out if I feel it necessary and shorten it a little bit. I really want to go to the barb. This one looks like I've already trimmed. If you want to soften the weed guard some so it's not quite as stiff, I just pull some out like this and I'll snip them off from the front, not from the back, from the front. That's going to allow that weed guard to be a little softer. Another little trick you can do with your weed guard, if you're fishing around wood or other hang-ups, pull it out, spread it out some, just bend it over and let it pop back. Now you'll see I got a much wider range of my weed guard there to help keep it from catching on wood, okay? Still, a football jig is not your best thing for wood, but it does help. It is an option. It's good to know about. So typically, I will end up trimming some skirt out. I like it to be kind of like that one, kind of beat up, right? Looks like it's well used. Very appreciated by the bass I'm throwing it to. I'm going to start with the full size just out of the package. Unless the skirt is ridiculously long, that's how I'm gonna start. Now, typically on this full size jig, one of the other options I'll go to in summertime, which is what you see here, is the Rage Craw. Okay, big, aggressive kickers, but I can get just about the same thing out of that Beasty bug. Both of these have great profile and all that other thing, okay? So it's achieving what I'm trying to achieve with this bait, which is a crawdad presentation in most cases, and occasionally bluegill on the lakes I fish. I didn't mention the finesse jig. I'm throwing 14 to 16 pound, 100% fluorocarbon FC Sniper, okay? On this full-size jig where I'm fishing usually 5/8 to 3/4 ounce, we're stepping it up a little bit, okay? We need to step it up a little bit because we got a bit beefier hook. A lot of times we're on a long cast, so we need some hook setting power. So this happens to be an Irod Air 754C. That is a heavy, fast, 12 to 20 pound test, 1/2 ounce to 2 ounce. And because it's the Irod Air series, which is Irod's top shelf, very, very sensitive, okay, and light. You'll see nice smooth reel nut there, so when you're palming the reel, it's very, very comfortable. Now, the reels, typically I'm using, try to turn this around without breaking the rod, Tatula SV 8-to-1. On here we have 18 pound Sunline shooter. You don't want to spend the money on shooter, 20 pound FC Sniper. I use both. Does it make a difference? I don't know. The shooter's a little stiffer line, if you will. Now, because I have the Yamamoto tournament coming up, I can't fish that trailer on there, so I'm going to have to put a different trailer on. I'm just getting rods out, getting ready. Thought it was a good time to talk about this kind of stuff because these are jigs I'm going to have rigged up. This is part of my approach to this tournament and what I want to do, being that I have to use Yamamoto baits. That covers our offshore stuff. Offshore, not throwing into cover. Doesn't necessarily mean we have to be offshore. We could be throwing this stuff around docks, that kind of thing. Could be throwing it in shallow water. It's just that stuff is for not into cover. Now, when we get into cover, and there is no shortage of that on Clear Lake where I'm going to be fishing, I really like this style of head. Okay, it's kind of a, I call it arky. I don't really know. Let's see, what do they call it? It's just their pitching jig. I don't know what they call the head. It looks pretty arky. It's not quite as flat as some others. You get the point. It's kind of going to come through things better than the football head. It's not as wide, a little more streamlined, kind of push those things open so that the jig can come through. Now, this one, you want a little beefier weed guard on it because you're throwing into heavy cover and you are bound to get hung up if you don't have that weed guard, okay? Oftentimes on a football head, depending on where I'm fishing, I might even cut the weed guard off. When I'm flipping, pitching into cover, it's the last thing I'm gonna do. I want a good stout weed guard there. I'm probably gonna spread this out a little bit the morning that I go out to fish, just to give me a little extra coverage on that jig. Just pull it off, do it a couple times, and you may have to do it. Now you can see, just spread it out a little bit, right? At the top, it's about a 1/2 inch. Just gonna give me a little more protection to keep that hook from snagging. Now, you can see I'm already geared up with my Yamamoto bait. Now, the Yamamoto Twin Tail, kind of hard to go wrong with. It's a great jig trailer. Finesse, whatever. It's a great jig trailer. I typically go to that in the winter. The other Yamamoto trailer I will be using is a Flappin Hog, okay? Keep it simple. Again, there you see, this one's called, I don't know what the name of this color is. This was a special Bassmaster Classic edition put out by Dirty Jigs. It's black, blue, and purple. It's black and blue with some purple strands in it also. Just a little bit unique, something you don't see every day. But anyway, that is I'm going to use a 3/8 to 1/2 ounce when I'm flipping pitching to cover. I'm throwing into shallower water with this, typically heavy cover, trees, tules, that type of stuff that jig can go in and bounce off. Now, I am using a little bit different rod here, and there's no reason I couldn't use that 754, to be honest, except that I intend to be pitching a lot, and so I like to go to the 744 Quercus Bass Warriors Workhorse. This is a rod that was kind of designed to do a bit of everything, okay? And it's a really good rod. 1/4 ounce to 1.5 ounce, 10 to 20 pound line. On there right now, I have 15 pound Reservoir hybrid, which is like 20 pound anything else. The stuff is super strong. It is a little bit stretchy because it's a copolymer. I'm short line fishing on this. I'm not making long casts. I'm going to be pitching to cover around docks, isolated cover, that kind of thing. So I just don't feel like I need to use the expensive line. Now, will I for tournament day if I find that this is a bite that I'm on? Yeah, that could happen. If I find that bite in practice and I'm grooving with this and it's working, I'm probably not going to change it. Like I said, that Reservoir hybrid, extremely strong stuff. Most monofilaments or copolymers you get into, they're going to be a bit stretchy. With that, they're extremely strong. Now, one thing you do want to be sure to do, if you get hung up or you get a big fish and you feel like you stretch that line, pull some of that line off. Cut it off, retie, pull 10, 15 feet off, cut it off, retie. Get some fresh line down there near your bait, because when it does stretch, you're going to start to compromise the line. Those are basically the jigs I'm going to stick with. Now all right, so the third jig that I'm going to use is really completely different than all the rest. And that's because this is a swim jig. So you'll see much more of a pointy style head. This happens to be a compact swim jig. Okay, so this I'm going to use a shorter trailer with. Now this is where we can start getting into some different types of trailers. No reason you can't still use like the Fat Pack Beasty bug, but you probably want to shorten it up, because the point of this one is to keep your bait very compact. And that's something I will do with almost every jig trailer anyway, is I will cut them to fit. But on this type of jig, we got a very short yet stout hook, okay, because it is a swim jig, but it is compact. This is something that I'm going to go to possibly a smaller swim bait, put it on here. You can use a Craw style bait, Fat Pack Swamp Monster. And this is something that sometimes people don't think about. Depending on your forage base, and we're going to just trim this down a little bit. Like I said, let's hold it up there first, measure it. We're going to trim it down quite a bit. Okay, we're going to trim down. You see I took about 3/4 of an inch off. I'm going to pull these arms off, and then we're going to thread that bait on, but we're going to do it, call it sideways. And I threaded that on the top half of the trailer to keep our bite. Okay, so we still got a good hook bite here. But by threading it on in this direction, now these claws are kicking this way instead of up and down, more fish-like. So if the fish are feeding on gills or some other sort of bait fish, this is more of a bait fish presentation when you rig it this way. That's pretty much how I'm going to fish a swim jig. I don't get too mixed up with it. On occasion, typically springtime, or if I definitely know they're feeding on craws, then I will rig it the standard way and roll that thing over. But if they're on bait fish, we turn it this way. If they're on crawdads, we'll turn it the other way. And that stuff we're fishing through very much the same shallow type of cover that we're flipping and pitching in. Could be weed edges. Throw it into wood, swim it through wood. We're really getting into deep cover, showing a presentation that's a little bit different. We're not letting this sink to the bottom. Well, hey, maybe you find a pattern sometimes where you do, where you let it sink to the bottom, then you swim it up and let it sink. Who knows what you might find? We always need to experiment with the fish to figure out what is the best presentation. But the swim jig is the other one I'm going to fish. So what did we see? We saw basically two different style jig heads for my everyday jig fishing, right? We got the football head for outside of cover, meaning offshore, could be docks, could be all kinds of different things. We're just fishing the football head, not in heavy cover, and we're typically casting it. Okay, if I'm pitching, flipping, going into cover, we're switching over to this other type of head, which I call an arky. Okay, you see it's kind of mushroom sort of. I just took that out of the package. That is a TL pitching jig, and I've got several pitching jigs here. Okay, I've got the Matt Herron, the Luke Clausen. They all have that same style head, that arky style. This one's a little bit wider than, say, the Matt Herron. This is the Matt Herron flipping jig, but it still has a similar style head, just a little bit narrower than that other one. Again, keeping it simple. We don't have to get 5 million different, although I do have them. You don't need all those different types. Keep it simple. Football's offshore, the arky style head into cover, flipping, pitching, target fishing, where we're fishing much closer. I personally like the compact jigs. It's just a personal thing, okay? The advantage to the compact especially I think when you're flipping into heavy cover and that kind of thing, compact's going to get through there easier with less chance of hanging up. Line on that one, they're all 8-to-1 reels, guys, okay? All of them are 8-to-1s. All of them are Tatula SBs. The only difference on the flipping pitching rod, 20-pound FC Sniper. I've never needed to go heavier than that, okay? Some of you guys back east where they don't cleanse your lakes, maybe, you might need to go up to 25. But for me, 20 is plenty here, and that's tangling with big fish at Clear Lake. If you enjoyed the video, hit that hype button if you have that option. Hit that like, subscribe, and become a member of the Average Angler channel. I'm Sean the Average Angler. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next one.